Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the second of 9 workshops that is being presented by Toastmasters Leadership Institute. Today's workshop is being presented by Nathan Gold, who is an accomplished speaker and a very accomplished coach. My name is Ravina Suri, and assisting me with technology is a very important person. It's our tech guru, Carrie Lynn Morgan. There we go. Before I introduce Nathan, I want to give thanks to a few people, a few teams that have helped us in bringing this workshop together. I'd like to thank the District 101 tech team. I'd like to thank the web team and the PR team. And I'd also like to thank Maitli Prabhu for helping with the organization of the Toastmasters Leadership Institute series. Now, to a few words about our accomplished speaker. Nathan hails from the San Francisco Bay Area. He's from here, woohoo! And he has traveled the world coaching people on how to prepare for high stakes speaking opportunities. And he's also taught people on how to harness speaking anxiety. And we're going to get all the tips from him today. How does he do this? He does this through keynotes that he delivers. He does this through interactive workshops, through live streaming, and one-on-one sessions, be they in person or online. Since we've had to move to the online world, I assume that's a lot of what you're doing right now, Nathan. For the past 13 years, Nathan has personally delivered innumerable presentations and has spent countless hours coaching people in all kinds of different realms. The Wall Street Journal calls him an elevator pitch expert. And that was because he coached 5 finalists in an elevator in the Wall Street Journal building in New York City. How cool is that?
In the elevator.
Nathan's portfolio is extremely impressive, for he is an industry fellow at UC Berkeley and at the Hong Kong Baptist University. In addition to this, he is a guest lecturer at Wharton's Entrepreneurship. And if this wasn't enough, in addition to all this, he has been featured on the Kaufman's Founder School, and he is a 2-time published author. Wow. Now, a few words, ladies and gentlemen. This workshop is being recorded, and Nathan will stay after his presentation to answer all questions that you ask of him. I repeat, all and every question that's posed, he will answer those. Please help me in welcoming Nathan to present his workshop. Take it over, Nathan.
Thank you very much. And I see I am off mute, so we're good to go. Thumbs up. Okay, thank you so much, Ravina. What a wonderful introduction, and thank you to all of the Toastmasters online and the guests. I truly appreciate the time that you've given me here to share my book with you. In fact, speaking of that, if you stick around till the end, I don't really need to give you any more about me because Ravina did such a beautiful job of that. And I truly wish, Ravina, anytime I have a keynote, can I just give you a ring up there and you could do that intro for me? It was wonderful. But I would like to offer all of you a free copy of my book that this talk I'm going to give you right now is based on. You will get a copy of this for yourselves at the end of this, no charge. In fact, you can even give one to your friends afterwards as well. So I'm not going to go into screen share mode. I think that's kind of antiquated these days, a little old school. So If you want the best experience from this workshop, you might want to go into full screen mode on your side, no matter what device you're on. Okay, so with that in mind, let me switch over to my slides so that you can see me and my slides all together. And again, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Let's get right to it. You know enough about me, so let's get right to the fact that I've already told you about the book. I forgot I put that slide in. So I would like to let every one of you ask questions of me anytime you want. And the simplest way to do that is to take your smartphone right now, scan the screen with your camera. If you're on an iPhone, just put it on that QR code. It will take you to slido.com, and right on that page, you will be able to ask me questions. If you don't know how to scan a QR code, don't worry about it. Just go to slido.com in your browser, on your phone, tablet, PC, whatever you're running. And when you see the, I forget what it's called, the session thing, put in D101TI. Okay? Would somebody please ask me a question right now? Any question you want so that you can see it pop right up on the window. And then what will happen is, as I talk, if you have a question, just put it in. And it'll build up, and then at the end, I will take all the questions at one time. If you see a question that you would like answered as well, you don't have to ask that same question again. That's the beauty of Slido or tools like it, is that if you want to know how many pets do I have, and you really want to know, and more of you really, really, really want to know, and like 74 of you want to know, well, there can't be because there's only 52 of you. If 38 of you want to know what my favorite color is, I'll know that at the end. Okay? Now stay right on that screen because I'd like you to do one more thing for me. Could you answer this question? Your screen should have automatically refreshed. It's magic, actually. I reach out to everyone online. Could you list right in what city are you in right now? I'm just curious if we could quickly build up a word cloud of where people are, just for fun. I won't wait for 50 of you to respond, but let's see what happens. One of my favorite interaction points with people online these days in a virtual world is not to have somebody sit there and say, hey, welcome from San Jose and Joe from Cupertino. I mean, that's nice, one way to do it, but you can see what's happening here is that a fair majority of you are from San Jose, Sunnyvale, and the local area. Let's see, do we have anybody else? Oh, Pebble Beach, welcome. That's cool. All right, that's enough, 19, 20 people. We don't need to leave that on. Let's get right into the content. So why are we here to talk about a topic that every one of you on this line should already be very comfortable with? And that is, how do you deal with your nerves in this world of speaking? Well, guess what? I'm here to tell you that it's not something you can get over, in my opinion. After all the time I've been spending in front of people, presenting, training, I started out in my career doing basically demos for companies in the software and hardware world. And I'm here to tell you that if you don't feel a little bit nervous before you get up in front of speak to people, I'd say you shouldn't speak. You shouldn't present. You probably don't care. You're so comfortable, you'd probably come across as you don't care. So what I'd like to suggest to you is that this thing people call fear of public speaking, it affects all of us, no matter how many times we speak per day, per week, per month, per year. The problem for most people that I have found in my career is that speaking anxiety, as I like to refer to it, because public speaking, the fear of public speaking can be defined so many different ways, but speaking anxiety happens in job interviews. It happens when you're sitting across the table at lunch and somebody asks you a difficult question. You might feel anxiety, and this could lead to your silent enemy of your own personal success. So my sincere hope here is that I can share with you some tools that work, that absolutely, if you use them, they will help you harness your speaking anxiety. Because I'm here to suggest to you that it ain't going away. It's going to be with you for the rest of your life. And the anxiety comes in many forms. The person you're looking at here on the screen is one of my clients. He's 44 years old now. Never spoke in public. Why? Because he froze up on stage when he was really young in elementary school, and he promised himself he would never speak in public again. Some of us have demons that keep us from speaking in any situation. It might keep us from speaking in a situation where we're looking for a job promotion. And if all we did was speak up and more confidently and get over that fear that we have, we might get more in life. I suspect most of you on the line know who this is. If you read his biography, Ringo Starr will tell you he has some of the most severe performance anxiety, and he melts at the stage before he runs up to his point on stage. His body is going crazy, and he gets over his anxiety by running up to the point where he can get ready to start doing what he does best. If he didn't run, he wouldn't be able to speak. So he says. I'll use myself as an example because you'd think, wow, this guy talks all the time. I do keynotes all the time. And the innumerable number of hours, I can't count them anymore, from my own personal deliveries as well as coaching others. It's not a brag. It's just, I want to point out, one of the most severe speaking anxieties I ever faced. Rovina mentioned the Kauffman Foundation in Kansas City. They called me up and asked me to come out there and film 2 series about presenting in the entrepreneurship world. Bring some suits, bring some ties, bring your stuff. We'll take care of everything else. Okay, so I get on the plane, I fly out there, I show up, I'm walking out the door at the hotel, and long story short, they drive me to the Performing Arts Center. This is where opera singers sing. And they walk me in, and I hear all this noise. And I'm thinking, well, that must be for something else because I'm just one guy. They're going to film in a side room, one camera, one light, microphone. No. They say, you go in there. And I walked in there. And folks, do you see what you see on the stage right there? There were 2 train tracks with very high-end cameras, 3 or 4 camera people, lighting. It was like, what did I get myself into here? I was totally unprepared for the situation. Of course, I knew my material, but the situation freaked me out to the point where I almost fainted. Standing on the stage right there, I had so much speaking anxiety, I literally turned white. That blue shirt you see me wearing there, it was dark blue. And that lady on the right side of the screen, her name is Sharon. Sharon was my makeup artist. Now, to this day, 10 years later, I've never had another makeup artist, but she could see what was happening, grabbed my arm, walked me out into the hallway, and taught me what to do, which I'm going to share with you, exactly what I had to do in that moment very, very soon. Take a listen to this. Now, the resolution of this video I'm about to play is not as important as the ending. So don't worry too much about the fact that it's going to be a little bit hard to see. It's not high resolution. The sound might be a little hard to hear in the beginning, but don't worry about that. Just watch it all the way till the end.
Ladies and gentlemen, director and producer Michael Bay. Good afternoon.
Thanks, Joe.
Good afternoon, Michael.
How is everyone today? My job as a director is I get to dream for a living.
Michael, you know, you're known for such unbelievable action. What inspires you? How do you come up with these unbelievable ideas?
I create visual worlds that are so beyond everyone's normal life experiences. And Hollywood is a place that creates a viewer escape. And what I try to do is, as a director, I try to... the type is all off, sorry, but I'll just wing this.
Tell us what you think.
Yeah, we'll wing it right now. I try to take people on an emotional ride, and
The Curve? How does it? How do you think it's going to impact how viewers experience your movies?
excuse me, I'm sorry.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, let's thank Michael Bay for joining us.
Wow. That guy was paid a lot of money to stand up at the Computer Electronics Show in front of the very first curved TV that Samsung ever showed the whole world. And he had so much speaking anxiety, he walked off the stage. Can you imagine Michael Bay, the director of Transformers and a bunch of other very famous movies, not being able to speak in a situation like that? You wonder, well, come on, the guy talks all the time. Why should he have any trouble in a situation like that? Especially when the MC did exactly what he should when the teleprompter went bad. You might have picked up on that. The teleprompter went bad. So the MC said, let's just wing it. Michael said, okay, let's just wing it. And then he went back to the script that he didn't even know. And he couldn't get a thought together. Now, there's a good, solid reason why he walked off stage. I won't get into the details of it, and Michael Bay probably hates me for talking about him for the last 7 years and using that as an example. But the short answer is we all have the possibility of walking off a stage. You all have heard of the fight, the flight, or the freeze. That amygdala, part of our brains. When you are so in such a moment like Michael Bay was in, his amygdalas kicked in so hard that he could literally not find any words in his brain, because when your amygdala kicks in to protect you from danger, your thinking brain is temporarily disconnected. It's not needed to decide to fight, flight, or freeze. If your thinking brain has to be involved in, should I move if this building is going to fall on me? Well, we're having a pretty good earthquake. Is that a 9 or an 8? Or I don't know. Should I move? You would all be dead. We'd all be dead. So the amygdala got Michael Bay so hard, and a bunch of other things happened too, that he could not come up with a thought. Now, that is possible for each and every one of us. Now, I'm going to give you some tools that would hopefully help you from walking off that stage. Now, whatever stage that is. Since we all have anxiety, it's really, where are you on the gauge? Are you hot, like ready to go and nothing's stoppable? You're so prepared, everything's going to be beautiful, on the red end of the spectrum, like I tend to be? Or are you on the bluer side, like I'm a little freaked out? I don't know, this is maybe my 3rd time, or somewhere in between. So the point I just want to let everybody here know is that we all feel it. We will always feel it. And if you don't feel some butterflies, don't present. Let me give you an example of how important those nerves are. Okay? I'm going to try and experiment with all of you. I'm going to go into gallery mode right now. And I'm going to try a little experiment with all of you, if you don't mind, okay? And since I'm the one presenting, I guess I don't even have to ask. What I'm going to do is set a 15-second clock. And I'm going to start the clock, and at the end of that 15 seconds, I'm going to pick someone, one of you, at random. You won't know who and why, and I'm an expert at picking the people who don't want to be called on. I just smell them. At the end of that 15 seconds, I'm going to call one of you. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, and then I'm going to ask you to do something. Ready? Okay. Let me look around. Who should I take? Let's see. Okay. Head fake. I'm actually not going to pick anyone. But I would like all of you to think, how do you feel right now? And if we had time in a workshop, I bet many of you would respond with, well, my palms got a little sweaty. What if you picked me? My heart started beating a little faster. I started to sweat a little bit. I bet more than half of you said, pick me, I want to go, pick me. But that kind of nervous energy is what's needed if you're going to be a compelling speaker, so long as you can harness it. So we can go into it a lot more, but you see how simple it is to turn those energy, those feelings, that nervousness on. And now what I want to help you with is what you can do with that incredible energy that's inside you. I'm here to suggest to all of you that the beautiful black stallion that you are looking at on the screen is a metaphor for your speaking anxiety. Now, I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't give you, medical advice about dealing with severe anxiety, but what I do want to show you now is how to harness your own anxiety just as if you were to harness a horse. I don't need a PhD or a medical degree to show you how to harness a physical horse, do I? Especially if I've done it thousands of times, or I do it myself. And that's what I'm here to do for all of you here today. So whether you like a black, white, painted, whatever, I hope that you realize that this guy or lady is going to be with you from now through the rest of your life. And for good reason. If it wasn't there, you'd probably be a boring speaker. So what can you do about it? All right, here we go. I'm going to go into high pace now. I'm from New York, and I can deliver a lot of information in a very short period of time and keep you engaged. One way to keep you engaged is I'm not going to tell you how many tools I'm going to share with you right now, but I'm going to give you a toolbox. And at the end, whoever gets the right number, I will have an offer to you. So if you want to count, you'll see a yellow helmet in the top left corner of every slide where there's a new tool. Here we go. The most important tool. When you feel speaking anxiety in the moment or before or even after, you have to stop and start taking control of your breath. This goes for literally anything in life, including speaking anxiety. If you don't take control over your breath and your breathing, nothing else matters. I'm here to tell you, if you don't start with your breathing, people can tell you all sorts of things to do. You can have beads and you can have all kinds of mantras going on in your head. But if you don't start breathing, you will not be able to calm your amygdalas down so that you can connect back to your thinking brain to get the content out the way you've prepared for. Why do you think you forget your first line like seconds before you get up in front of, God, I've been practicing. What's my first line? You should expect that because that's your amygdala saying, hey, are you okay? Everything's safe? Wait, let's just double check. Wow, there's 100 people in the room. That's 200 eyeballs looking at me. Are they going to eat me? No, they're not going to eat you. They're nice people. Relax. Oh, I know my first line. I know it in my sleep. So that is part of getting back to the earth. When your amygdalas are kicked in, you need to start breathing. Now, I'm here to suggest to you that most people don't breathe properly. Speakers, presenters, and we as people don't breathe properly. If any of you ever get dry mouth, you're not breathing properly. Dry mouth is a myth. Your mouth doesn't dry out. It's because you're breathing incorrectly in most cases. The proper way to breathe is in through your nose. Why? Because that moisturizes the air that goes into your lungs. And then when you speak, you breathe out. You breathe out through your mouth, and that moisturizes. You can finish the sentence. If you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, which is very natural to breathe out through your mouth because that's how we speak. You don't speak through your nose. That's all you need to do to minimize the chances of getting any sort of dry mouth. And it moisturizes and warms the air that you need to put into your lungs. If I do this through my mouth, and eventually, some people actually, you can tell that they're breathing through their mouth. And that's just wrong, folks. You're not doing your body any good. Now, in acting, they teach you if you're in front of lights and you get a little bit of that dry mouth, one way to keep your lips from sticking to your teeth is just to take a little bit of Vaseline a few minutes before you go out on stage and just rub it on the top and bottom teeth on the outside. You won't taste it, especially if you just have the normal stuff. And then by the time you go out there, your lips are moving fine and you won't even know it's there. It'll dissolve away and next thing you know, you'll be done. So I carry one of these little things with me, although I don't tend to use it on my lips. I use it on my lips a lot because as I speak a lot, my lips tend to dry out. Now, some people need some real help when it comes to breathing. And that help comes in the form of something called tactical breathing or combat breathing. This is taught to military, police, first responders, and anyone where they're put in situations where things happen that are totally unexpected and it blows your mind, so to speak, and your amygdalas kick in. And the only way for you to get your senses back is to literally do tactical breathing. Now, I don't want to necessarily spend the time tonight teaching you how to do tactical breathing. It's a very simple thing to learn how to do. The instructions are on the screen right now, or just Google tactical breathing or combat breathing. It's very simple to do. Most people only need to do it 1 or 2 or 3 times just before you get ready to speak. And you feel this warm wave of, okay, I know I'm prepared. I'm ready. Here we go. And then you just do it. And that's the bit about breathing. I know I spent a lot of time on breathing, but like I said, if you don't start with your breath, nothing else really matters. Now, the second thing that you can take control of very quickly to help you with your anxiety is to let your body do what it needs to do, which is breathe properly, which is down into the abdominal cavity. You know, when we're nervous, typically we're doing clavicle breathing very high up in our chest. And sometimes we even stop breathing. I'm sure some of you have experienced that moment where you, holy moly. And posture has a lot to do with that. If you don't use the right posture, you can't breathe properly. So I'm sitting today, but I'm not touching the back of my chair, and my small of my back is really pushed together. So when I'm standing, I use that same thing with my butt, so I know that I'm using the best posture to get the best breathing. The best breathing all leads to the ability of you to deliver your best work. You can always improve your posture. I tend to slouch a lot when I'm not presenting, so I have to continually remind myself when I'm standing up in front of people or sitting up in front of people, I've got to lose the slouch. It helps me breathe. Next up is your voice. Now, we all have a voice, of course. And I know in Toastmasters, they teach you an awful lot about vocal variety. And I'm a true believer in vocal variety. I'm a believer in emphasis. And I'm a believer in all of that great stuff. So I just want to emphasize all of that with another video example of how powerful your voice is when it comes to communicating whatever it is you want to communicate. Let's take a listen to this.
Blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah.
Okay, I would like to reserve the rest of that. It's online. There's more to it. And if we were in a workshop, I'd let it go on. But I really want to make the point that I believe most of you probably have already gotten from that. And you've all heard, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. That clearly demonstrates to you that everyone in the audience there kind of could figure out what he was going to be saying based on the familiarity with that situation. And I know it's not always going to be this easy, but you could almost put the words in your head about what he was doing in his acceptance speech. That was the Rush band accepting their Hall of Fame. And the other two went up there and did their normal, thank you, thank you, thank you, Mom, thank you, Dad. And he literally did his entire speech with the word blah. And if you want a really fun exercise in your clubs, get people to do a blah, blah, blah story. And have them do it in teams together. Give them 5 minutes to prepare. This is one of the most fun things people go through. It kind of comes from improv in a way. And they will never, ever forget the fact that my voice is a lot more important than I give it credit for. Now, another way to deal with your anxiety as a speaker is to establish your credibility with an audience as quickly as possible. Now, I got lucky here tonight. I had Rovina who did that beautiful, here's Nathan, he's done this, he's done that. I didn't have to say anything. After that, just go into the content. Now, the problem is, how often does that happen for us? Well, not very often. So we have to establish our own credibility. And as a speaker, even after she told you all that wonderful stuff, it's still my job to live up to that. So I'd like to break it down for you in one simple way. As a presenter, as a speaker, if you become a more credible speaker, you will become a more persuasive speaker at the same time. So here are the 4 ways that I recommend you think about your credibility as it comes to as it relates to being a speaker. You need to establish your expertise or your specialty, of course, right? I mean, you have to have some expertise or some specialty, and that by itself at least establishes some credibility. But we all know we don't trust every expert out there. And that's where number 2 comes in. You need to build trustworthiness as quickly as possible. Now, we don't have a ton of time here tonight. Happy to talk about it in more detail. But trust comes in many forms. There's not just one magic thing you do, and now you are trustworthy. It's something you start, you build, you continually reinforce, and continue to reinforce. And do you get my point? So once you establish that you're trustworthy, you better stay trustworthy, because it's one of those things you can lose very, very quickly. And trustworthiness comes in the way you present, the way you speak, the way you look at me, the way you look at people, the way you answer questions, what your LinkedIn profile looks like, what your slides look like, how you talk. All of that together builds up what people consider a trustworthy person. The third of the 4 legs is the most trustworthy speakers and presenters out there, whether you're selling something or whether you're just giving me information, tend to be the ones that are doing it for the right reasons. They're being in service of others, in service of the ocean, in service of the community, something where you're helping the world to be a better place. It doesn't mean you won't get credibility if you don't. It just means if you put these 3 together, you'll have a better chance of establishing quick credibility with your audience in just your opening lines, the way you look, the way you sound. And then in terms of in service of others, I'd like to invite you to this quote from a very good TED coach friend of mine. He often gets scripts that start with I, me, my, we, I. He throws them right back and he says, I have one thing I want you to do with this script. Make the audience the hero in your talk, not you. And the script usually is 180 degrees written differently. And you've all seen TED and TEDx talks, so you know what they sound like. So keep the audience in mind, make them the hero in your talk, and you will be considered a much more credible speaker. And now for the 4th leg, and the part that I find is the missing link from being a good presenter to being a great, outstanding, unforgettable presenter. And if we had time, I'd ask you to tell me what you think that is, but I'll just share it with you right now. And that's enthusiasm. Some people call it passion, excitement. I like to refer to it as enthusiasm because I believe we all know when we see honest, authentic, and real enthusiastic people that believe and love what they do, and they're honest, they're authentic, they're real, and they're unforgettable. You can't take your eyes off of them. Everything they're saying is resonating like, wow, that's something I've known for a long time, but the way he says it, it's like, or she says it, it's like, yeah, oh, I knew that, but why? The way they said it, it's like the stuff Simon Sinek has taught all of us. That whole stuff about why, how, what, and finding your purpose, that stuff's been around since, biblical times. Find your purpose, I mean, he just made it easy for all of us to embrace. So I forget where I go on that. Next tool, meet and greet. Now, in the days when we would walk in rooms, I would get there so early that I would meet all the people coming in the room until we were ready to get started. And I would say hello, I'd shake their hand, I'd have them sit down, I'd get them some coffee, I would ask them why they were there. By the time my events started, where I'd have 20, 30 or more people, I knew half the people in the room. So talk about lowering your anxiety. Meet as many people as possible, and guess what? You'll have so many friends, the others will feel left out. Like Rovina and I were chatting away when some of you came in. I remember, Pam, you came in. Did you feel like maybe you were missing something? Oh, wow, the conversation is already going on. So in the virtual world, you can do the very same thing. Open it up 15 minutes early. Get in there. The first person that shows up, say, hey, how you doing? Where are you from? What's going on? Why you? Next thing, and next thing you know, maybe your opening can be different. You plan this opening for your talk. You all do, right? You rehearse it, you memorize it, and you're ready to go in a lot of cases. Well, what if there's some perfect anecdote that you can use from someone you just met that day, that just before them in that 15 minutes? Now you can chuck your whole opening that maybe you haven't even tested yet. And you say, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, when I was talking to Rovina before we started, she kind of boiled it into one beautiful sentence about what I'm here to talk about. Thank you, Rovina. Now Rovina's like, oh, thank you for recognizing me. And now it's like, so meet and greet. The serendipity of meeting and greeting people for speakers, especially lowering your anxiety. Now you can look into the room or look on the screen and say, oh, I know 3 or 4 of those people. Now I can actually say, hey, Pam, do you remember what we were talking about when we first got to the meeting? And I can go back there anytime I need a friend. Right, Pam? Okay. People always tell me, oh, my God, it's just those 30 seconds leading up to the presentation. Or some people tell me, once I get past those first 30 seconds, I'm fine. And I call bullshit. Don't use the first 30 seconds to warm up in front of your audience. That's just not right. If you're worried about using nervous energy in the first 30 seconds, I recommend what I call the first 30. Like, skip the content. I know that if you're timed, it's different. But in most cases, start with a smile and breathe. Here's what to do if you just want to get through those first 30 seconds and then be ready to go. Start with a smile. Even if you're selling caskets, you can start with a smile and breathe. True story around the caskets, by the way, but we'll leave that for another time. Stand or sit tall and breathe. Tell your body that it's okay where you are right now. Nobody's going to eat you. You're just here to present and speak. Next, skip the memorized lines for a moment and just go to a good morning or a good afternoon or good evening. At least those 2 words get something out of your body. And now your body says, your brain says, okay, everything is okay. Relax. It's all right. And thank you for showing up today. Thank you for your time. Everybody loves to be thanked for their time when it's honest. And then then you start. Now you're 10, 12 seconds in and your body should be feeling better. Then maybe you do a verbal agenda. Next 25 minutes, I promise you, blah, 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 and blah. And then I'm so happy to talk with you about harnessing your speaking anxiety. Let's get into it. And by that time, you're so warmed up, you're ready to rock it. The analogy I like to use with people is, if you've seen the Rocky movie, the very first Rocky movie, he would run up the stairs and then at the top he would throw his hands and arms up in the air. The metaphor to me is, or the analogy is, most speakers run up the stairs in front of their audience, when I believe you should run up the stairs before you hit your audience and then be up there ready to rock it. If you need to warm up a little differently, but that's my own opinion. And since I'm speaking, I can stick to it. Now, what if you lock up right in the middle or after slide 1? I don't know, but there are so many opportunities for you and me to lock up. And I'm here to tell you, it happens to all of us. All of us. Sometimes I forget things that you would think he didn't forget that. One time I forgot one of the three tools I'm going to end with here that I would tell people all the time at the end of presentations until somebody said, why don't you write a book on this stuff a few years ago? So I would tell people these 3, and literally one day I was in 12 hours ahead of myself, and I get to the conclusion and I say, now remember the 3 things. 1 is this, and I literally lost my brain. I couldn't think of it. So I did what I'm going to tell you to do. First of all, you need to trust yourself. If you're prepared, trust in the force, Luke or Lainey, because you have it. It's in there. All you need to do is start by breathing. Because at that moment when you lock up, your amygdalas kick in and say, oh. And if you don't start breathing, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. So breathe. Next thing you can do is move. Grab a drink of water if you need to or can. Like right now, if I completely forgot what I would say, excuse me just a moment. And you do a physiological pause in the presentation and you grab your cup of water or tea and you drink something. If that doesn't work, just click and move on if you're using slides. Jump to the next thing. Who cares? Most people don't know what you're going to say anyway. We hold ourselves to a very high standard. I've got to say it exactly the way I wrote it, or I have screwed up. Yeah, you may have screwed up in your own mind, but nobody in the room knows you've screwed up. I like to become vulnerable in these situations. I ask the audience, hey, does anybody remember? I know I said it earlier. I'm a little ahead of my time zone. Anybody remember the second one? And it's this one. And they go, oh, thank you very much. And now they are a hero and I can get back on. And it happens. It totally happens. Ask the audience. Why not? It's okay. Or just be honest. Just be honest and don't hide from it. If you literally can't remember something, sometimes being honest, well, I'm not able to recall number 2, so I'm just going to move on to number 3, and you keep moving, and if you still can't do it, take a quick break, pick up your notes, look it up, and it'll come back to you. It's never normally that severe if you've rehearsed, but it does happen to all of us. One of my favorite tools to keep my presentation in my head, especially new ones, is a mind map. If you haven't discovered mind mapping in your youth or when you were in university, which unfortunately I can claim I didn't, I wished I had. I didn't learn about mind mapping until I was out of university. I would have done so much better in school if I had mind mapping because it lets you see on one page your entire presentation as you see it in your head. This mind map is not for anybody but the person that wrote it. And that's the beauty of mind mapping. There's no rule. There are no rules. You just write it out the way you want it to look so that you can either put it on the table, put it above the camera, or just have it in your mind's eye, because these mind maps are beautiful visual representations of your talks, of your presentations, of the points that you want to make. Perhaps even the point you want to make during your interview are right there, and you glance over and that word personal adventure, oh, that reminds me about this. And that's what they are. Mind maps are just nothing more than triggers for you as a presenter or as a speaker. If you get hooked on mind mapping like I was for a while, they have software to do mind mapping, and it's brilliant. You can collaborate with software on some of this. So you can get 3 or 4 people brainstorming, and you can grab that whole arm and move it over to another area, and boom, boom. And in fact, you can present right from some of these products. Amazing. Now for one of my absolute favorite tools of all time to help all of us manage our state of mind. It's called a mood inducer. It's a fancy name for something you all know. So about 15 seconds into when Rovina was introducing me to you, that was the music playing in my head. When I hear that music, it lights me up. That's my mood inducer. Every one of you need to find your own mood inducer. It's nothing more than a good piece of music that lights you up. And that's what psychology calls it, by the way, because I was talking to an MD PhD once about this, and he says, what do you tell people about being nervous? And I said, I tell them to find a piece of music that just gets them lit up, like the Rocky theme. And he says, yeah, that's what we call a mood inducer. Oh, thank you. Now, as with anything, there's no business like show business. And for me, I believe every time we speak, it's a little bit like show business. And you can take it too far, yes, but you can also bring your best self with your best display of everything you need to create your own show, especially in this virtual world. Boy, you can create your own virtual stage. But in terms of show business and what we're doing as speakers, it's no different than a sport. I feel like I'm about at the end of a marathon right now because we're getting to the end. We're about to go into Q&A. I am perspiring right now as if I have just run around the block many times. Now, I haven't taken the time to drink much water, but I am here to tell all of you this, or share this with you. A speech pathologist told me in the year 2001, if you want your body to be hydrated as a speaker, you need to hydrate the day before you speak, not the day of. So you need to really put the extra water, and he says just water, into your body the day before, so that your body has what it needs on the day of an important talk or an important presentation, where you've got all this energy and this nervousness going on in your body. So make sure you stay hydrated. Now, I know Toastmasters is a wonderful, wonderful organization, and I'm not patronizing you when I tell you that, but I do a presentation like this elsewhere, and I want you to see how I end. So here's how I end. There's help and support out there for you when you have speaking anxiety. I have just shown you a number of tools that I use as a speaker that you can start using, and I can coach you on how to use. Please look me up, blah, blah, blah. The second and most effective way that you can improve your presentation skills and speaking skills and get control over your speaking anxiety is do a quick search on Toastmasters in your local city, anywhere in the world. Blah, 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 and I give some great recommendations because I totally believe in your mission. And then I say, if you really want to go out on a limb and turn yourself into an incredibly, let's call it experimental kind of a presenter, meaning you don't want to just grow, you want to blow, you want to expand like a balloon, like you want to blow up a balloon. You don't want to take your time to become a good speaker. You just want to get there. Now, there's nothing that replaces actually doing it, but check this out.
Why would you use improv to help with public speaking?
So the real objective of improv is how can we get you to reduce your self-consciousness around your voice and your body? You get your body on your side and you just act like a confident person. And now we're all gonna Dougie. You're just doing something, because that's the rule of improv. There are no improv police. You cannot fail at this.
I tell people, if you want to elevate your ability to feel comfortable with those nerves that we all feel when you present in any situation, go to improv. Not as a career, just go. Like, don't go where people know you, like drive 20 miles or somewhere where people don't know you. And I'm really excited to let you know that they are moving into the virtual world for now. And I made a promise that I was going to do one of those virtual ones before the end of the year. And unfortunately, I didn't do it. But I still have that promise to be met. And I guarantee you, one improv session will change your life in terms of how you think you can speak. It'll just show you stuff about yourself that you never knew, or you thought was possible, but you never knew how to get there. And then, in conclusion, we started with why. Let's end with why, so I can end on time, take a couple of questions, and as Ravina said, I'm going to hang with you as long as you want to answer more questions. We'll take a look at what's come in over the Slido in just a moment. But this is a little bit of a head fake because I'm not going to finish with the same why that we started with. I want to refer back to Simon Sinek for a moment. If you haven't seen his talk from 2009, called How Great Leaders Inspire Action, where he brought the golden circle to our eyeballs, all backed by science and research, which I am a big believer in science and research. He has changed our world from the standpoint of helping us realize that it's not that hard to connect with your audience on an emotional level. If you just talk about your ideas, your products, your services, and your causes a little bit differently than what a lot of people do. Instead of starting with what, moving to how, going to why, you start with why, going. And I'm not here to teach you about it, but there's a whole book on starting with your why. Why do I bring this up? Because I would ask all of you, do you know what your why is? Because if you can answer what is your why, what gets you up in the morning, what drives you to go to work, to do the best possible work you can do, what drives you to be a speaking coach or to start a business, what is it about? What is your why? I truly believe When you know what your why is, and when you say it aloud with no one in the room, you get goosebumps. That's how powerful it is when you know your purpose. And I'm not talking about a religious purpose. That's a bigger, maybe different purpose. I'm just talking about, everyday purpose. Like, why you do what you do for a living, if you want to be specific. Like, why do you go to work every day? To make money. Yeah, I get that. But why else? What is it? And when you know what your why is, your anxiety as a speaker, it's almost like controllable to the point where you're living your purpose. So when somebody throws an objection at you or challenges you or says bullshit on what you just said, it's like, okay, but this is what I believe. This is how I'm living. And I have thousands of people that also believe, and you have your community. And it's not like you're arguing, but it's like when you know what your why is, your life, the way you speak, the conviction in your voice, the sound of the words that you say are just different. They're more compelling, convincing, especially if you're not an actor. Actors and actresses they lie to us, but they're convincing because that's what they're paid to do on TV and in movies, right? Convince me that you like to eat people's faces. Okay, then we've seen that happen. Well, maybe not, but anyway, I digress. All right. Now, normally I would ask, how many tools did I share with you? Let's do it. How about in the chat window? Go ahead in the chat window and you can send a direct message to me, please, if you would. Go ahead and pop in there. How many tools did I give you? Of course, Satish. Satish was watching me like a hawk. Yes, that is correct. There were 10 tools today. And now I appreciate all of you who got it. The thing is, if you haven't linked in with me yet, please link in with me and tell me you got 10, and then I'll send you my gift. Now, I want to wrap up, and I'll tell you how to link in with me in just a moment, with my final conclusion, which is the dumbest thing people tell us. Don't get nervous. It is the dumbest thing you can tell somebody. And here's why. I'll change those 2 words of get nervous. Okay, ready? I know how dumb this is going to sound, but trust me. Don't smoke. When you say don't get nervous, we don't hear the word don't. Why do you think so many people smoke? Don't smoke. That campaign all over. Oh, anyway, I shouldn't digress. When you say don't do something to somebody, don't think of a pink elephant. That's a better example. Don't think of a pink elephant right now. Don't. Stop. Stop it. Don't. Right? It's impossible. You're telling somebody don't. Hey, get nervous. So stop telling people this. Okay? Because it's absolutely worsening the situation. Know this. And remember that these are the top 3 tools to use. It all starts with breathing, posture, and music. If you do just those 3, you can forget about the other 7 for now. And in the book, there's 18 total tools that I've identified that you can use to help you with your anxiety. I didn't want to cover them all today because it's not that important. These are the 3 biggest ones. So when you start feeling that anxiety, these are the 3 to go to. Now, I know there are some of you out there going like, wait a minute. How am I supposed to remember to do those 3 things, Nathan, if you told me my amygdala is going to kick in? How am I supposed to remember to breathe? And that's a really good question, because you may not. So, you need an anchor. If, depending on the situation, for a really important situation where like your life is on the line, or it's a do or die situation, or you're trying to raise money for a company that you're building, and you just need an anchor. Now, an anchor is just something physical that will remind you to breathe. Once you get to the breathe, the posture and the music should come automatically. So what you're looking at on the screen is a little ring that a friend of mine has, and they put it on their left hand when they speak, only when they speak. And they use that as a reminder to breathe when they feel nervous. And they only wear it when they speak. An easier thing to do, perhaps, is if you wear a watch on your right wrist, flip it over to your left wrist when you speak. just when you speak, because it will seem odd over there, and that could be your anchor. I do it with my rings sometimes. If I'm in a really tough situation, I'll take my wedding ring and put it onto the other hand because it really feels odd over there, and that reminds me to breathe. So you need something in the moment that you don't have to think about. So that's why you need an anchor like this. So in conclusion, to finish on time, I know we haven't gotten to the Q&A yet, but remember this beautiful animal, this thing we call our speaking anxiety, is not going away, but it's something you can embrace and harness just like you would a horse. And then when you're not needing it, let it run free, but you can put that harness on it. Take a little bit of action. Be nice to yourself. This is hard work. Dealing with your nerves is not simple, but it is something you can get accustomed to. And the more you do it, the more you accept the fact that you will feel these butterflies, the easier it will be for you to make those butterflies fly in formation instead of all over the place. I've already offered you the book tonight, so here it is. If you scan this QR code, it will take you to my electronic business card. And at the bottom of the business card, there's a button. Click that button. You'll be able to download my ebook right now. No advertisements, the full book. And I hope that you feel like this last 55 minutes or so has given you some encouragement, or at least some security in knowing that those nerves you have when you speak are actually a good thing if you simply embrace them and use them to direct into the energy that we need when we're presenting and trying to communicate our enthusiasm. And the bottom line is, if you can transfer your enthusiasm to your audience for anything you're doing, any idea, product, service, or cause, you've done your job as a speaker. Thank you.
Wow, Nathan, that was amazing.
Thank you.
You have left us with so many tips, and some of them, like you said, they're everyday things, but just reminding us that they're there and how to use them. Very powerful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll open it up for questions and answers right now.
Yes, I can start if you want to. Before we go to the chat window, I do have Slido up here that I can pick out a few questions, and I'm excited to answer the first one there, which is what is the application that allows the slides to be in the background, Mr. Gold? Thank you for calling me Mr. Gold, but you can always call me Nathan. Thank you for asking that. There's many ways you can do that. The easiest way to do that, if you're not that technical, believe it or not, is to use a virtual background that is your slide. So you create a PowerPoint deck, right? And you're done with your PowerPoint deck. And I always leave this much space on my PowerPoint deck on the left-hand side blank, because that's where I'm going to sit. So I literally move over like this, and I sit on this side where I'm sitting right now. And my slides are over here. It's the virtual background. And I literally sit there with Zoom and change my virtual background to change my slides. And I never leave the screen, and I never share my screen. Does that make sense? So you go into PowerPoint, you create your slides, then you export them as JPEGs. In one shot, you can dump them all out as JPEGs. Then you got to suck them in one by one to be your virtual backgrounds. And then you just change virtual backgrounds. That's the simplest way to do it. What I'm doing here with you tonight is a bit advanced. It's called OBS Studio. And OBS Studio basically lets you be your own production television channel. It literally lets you take control of your camera and do everything that you see people do on newscasts in TV. To give you a sense for what I'm working with here, this is my office right now, looking at it from the left with the 13-foot green screen behind me. It's a little overkill, but I'm a professional speaker. I need these things. This is what it looks like from behind. I've got lights lighting up my green screen, and I've got lights lighting up me. And then above me, I have one more camera to show you that I've got my microphone sitting right here, my mouse, my keyboard, and my digital SLR as my webcam. So let's see, multi-camera. So that's all of them together. Now, that's not something, what I've just shown you right here is not something you can do with Zoom, Teams, GoToMeeting, WebEx, or any of them. But what you can do is take control over what the feed is that goes to any software product out there. There's a number of other tools that you can use. So OBS Studio is, and it's not complicated, but it's not simple either. It takes getting used to. I would start, if you want to do some of the stuff like I've been doing here, where I have my PowerPoint slides over here, I would create a PowerPoint slide that's literally the whole screen, and I would put it as my virtual background, and I would literally do something like this, where I'm literally sitting in the middle like normal. I would slide my chair over. That's how technical you have to get. Right? Slide your chair over and then change the virtual background. In fact, I might even be able to do it to show you what it would look like, just changing virtual. Yeah, here. I'll just change the background. I'll just change the background and change the background. Change the background. Oops, sorry. Whoops. I didn't want to turn the camera off. So I can go here. I can change the background. I can change the background. I can change the background. And that's all I'm doing is just changing the background to be a different slide. That's the fastest way to do it. Okay, where do I live? Fremont, California. How many pets do I have? Two cats. What's your favorite color? Blue. Are you wonder where everyone is? Where did the Hey, listen, let me get to another. I stutter. When I'm called upon to speak, the first few sentences come out fine, and then I lose my train of thought. Immediately start sweating. Your advice. I think you know my advice. You either need to take a break, start breathing, because you're probably not breathing properly. If you go back and look at any video where you ended up in this situation, and this is not just if you stutter, but in any situation where you start to go down, 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 we're not breathing enough. If all you did probably is just breathe a little bit more at that point, you might have been able to pull it back. But if you don't start breathing, everything gets worse and worse and worse, and sometimes you walk off the stage like Michael Bay. So the sweating is probably because your brain is starting to tell you, oh, you idiot, you just forgot what you were saying. Oh, you're stuttering. Now what? Now what? Now what? And then it gets worse and worse and worse. So part of it's what you say to yourself, but more than likely the breathing would have probably helped you. Now, the other thing I would have done is taken an extended pause, like make an excuse. If you start losing your train of thought, do what acting calls a physiological pause. Like, take a moment, get some water, get some tea, take a bite if you have to. Turn off the camera and say, I'll be right back in 15 seconds. Shut off the camera for a moment. Everybody's going to wonder what's going on, and it doesn't matter what's going on. But what does matter is you're taking the time to compose yourself and try to get yourself back. And if that means turning off your camera and muting and yelling at the screen at the top of your lungs or jumping up and down for 15 seconds till you get yourself back, then that's what we have to do. Hopefully you won't have to do that very often, right? Now, I know I am running over the 7 o'clock here, so I do want to stop for a moment and respect the people who expected it to be ending at 7. So I'm going to turn it back over to Rovina now, and thank you all so much for your time tonight. And I am a big believer in LinkedIn. That's how I stay in touch. I'll accept all your LinkedIn requests, and I like to share my LinkedIn connections, so you can ask and I will share. So in conclusion, thank you so much. Turn it back to you, Rovina, and afterwards I'm happy to stick around and answer as many questions as you want.
Well, thank you, Nathan. Thank you once again for a beautifully delivered workshop and for sharing 10 tools with us that we can use. And thank you also for allowing us to download your book. For the audience, I just want you to know that we will be sending out the link to the recording, and we will also be sending out a survey within a couple of days. If you can please fill out the survey, we will share the comments with the speaker, and also it helps us at the district level when we design programs or when we think about future workshops. So those of you who want to stay and ask Nathan questions, please feel free to. Otherwise, we will say that the workshop's concluded at this point and the recording will stop right now.
Thank you all. Be safe.